Hello, this is Coach Aaron Saft in the Running His Life podcast. Today's guest is Thomas Brown. Once again, we are going to summarize our races at the Badger 100. This was race number 3 in Thomas's Grand Slam and race number 2 for me in my Grand Slam. So Badger 100, for those that don't know, starts in Orangeville, Illinois, and finishes in Belleville, Wisconsin. Pretty cool. It's a double out and back. So we go out, back, and then out one more time. It's on a rails trail. We're going to talk all about it. In this episode, I mention my nutrition strategy. So at the end of this episode, I'll talk more about that. I didn't want to kind of get into that. Well, Thomas was my guest. I wanted to kind of focus on our conversation and not focus too much on myself. So after our conversation, I'll share with you nutrition strategy and everything else that's going on. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Thomas, and I'll talk to you after that. Welcome back, Thomas Brown. We're sitting here a few days after we returned from the Midwest, both Illinois and Wisconsin. Thomas got to go back to his homeland. How are you feeling a few days after the race?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. And yeah, it was neat getting back to Illinois. No matter what, I mean, that's where I was born and raised. So it's always good to get back home.
So for those that don't know, we just did the Badger 100, which is put on by 10 Junk Miles. Was kind of a last minute effort to get this one going. Thomas, you want to talk about how all this came about?
Yeah, it's driving up to Vermont 100. I thought for sure it was going to get canceled, and I wasn't sure. I just thought it was a matter of when, but I just had some wishful thinking. I started driving up there and got about halfway, and then found out it was going to get canceled. We found out from the Grand Slam committee that we'd be able to use any race for 2023 to be our race instead of Vermont. Burning River did not work out, and I wasn't so sure about any other races. And then the Badger 100 came up, and I was like, Wisconsin, I don't want to go to Wisconsin. And then I realized, oh wow, the logistics is not that bad. Driving there 12 to 13 hours, and then continue on planning from there.
Yeah. So Vermont had the state of emergency, which we knew ahead of time. But we were hoping they could figure out something selfishly. But obviously that didn't work out. So, we had to pivot. We both had kind of signed up for Burning River. But as you said, that didn't work out due to the request to be a part of the Grand Slam. The race had to approve our use of that for the Grand Slam, and they wanted more of a written formal agreement with the Grand Slam, which was something that's totally up to them, obviously. But as we approached Scotty Coomer with 10 Junk Miles, he was very amicable and let us right in, which was really generous because registration had already closed, and here we were less than 2 weeks to race day. So that was great. And as you said, the logistics really weren't too bad to get there. You ended up flying into Chicago.
Yeah, it was actually I had it in the back of my head, and I ended up buying a ticket the Tuesday before, and ended up flying in O'Hare, Chicago, and renting a car and driving less than a couple hours. Yeah,
it's like 2 hours or less to get there. So logistically travels were not bad. We driving we just stopped in Chicago ourselves and spent a little time. And then drove up. We stayed in Freeport, Illinois, which was about 15 minutes from the race start. Freeport was an interesting little town of Americana. You want to describe Freeport?
Yeah, town probably had about 22,000 folks living there. I think that's what I saw. I'm from Southern Illinois. This is Northern Illinois. My first time being there, but it's still Illinois. So a lot of things reminded me of back home. But Illinois towns, small cities like that, or big towns, all have a downtown area. For me, it was actually, I felt like I was at home a little bit. One thing, and then, towns like that, they have in Illinois, they always have nice parks, so it was always nice to see that. And the very cool thing that we didn't have when I was growing up was it was a railroad back there, not a rails to trail. So yeah, that led into, actually, I believe that led into Freeport too, the Jane Addams Trail, which
yeah. So we were the course itself was on the James Adams Trail and the Badger.
Yeah, what I saw was like the Jane Addams Trail when it was in Illinois.
Yeah,
I think because she was from Chicago,
and we only had a few miles on that. Yeah, and then it turned into the.
I think it was the Badger Trail. From
the Badger. Yeah, the Badger Trail. Once we got into Wisconsin, so straightforward, just rail to trail. We did have a detour, which actually surprised a lot of us to see some hills after being on a rails to trail. It's just that. Very steady grade, and then all of a sudden we get off, and there were some good hills.
That was my favorite part of the race, the hills.
And so we can talk about the course a little bit. It started in Orangeville, Illinois, and it was a out to Belleville where the finish was, but then we had a little section that we had to go a little further to what was called Dot's Tavern, which is where they had packet pickup, and then we came back to Belleville. Then you had to go all the way back to Orangeville and then all the way back to Belleville for the finish. What did you think about that format?
Well, I was just captivated by the thought we're going to have to go downstairs in Dot's Tavern. The format, I had it back in my head. What I kept on thinking about was a couple of years ago I did Tunnel Hill 100. So that was the only thing I compared it to. Mm-hmm. Like I had back in my head, it's like, wow, it's going to be a lot of flat and how hard that can be on your legs.
Right.
I like the out and back format. I enjoyed that. I don't always get to do that, so it's nice to see things a couple of times, sometimes 3 times. And then, still scratch my head about Dot's Tavern, but it turned out all right.
Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. It was going there for packet pickup. We the day before packet pickup was in the evening on Friday. Race started 6 a.m. on Saturday Central Time, and so Friday you and I and my crew, we drove and kind of just saw where the crew stations were, which would also be drop bags for you because Thomas went without crew or pacer, which we can talk about that logistically as well. But this this course being what it was really set up well for, we were discussing this before the podcast. It was really set up well for, having crew and drop bags and such because it was so accessible. So that was a nice, part of it. We didn't really have to plan a lot, due to that. So you want to talk about like what you were doing for drop bags and how much you were doing?
Yeah, probably like a few days before the race, I printed out where the aid stations were. I had to sort of look through there just like, I'm going to be going to this place 2 to 3 times. So I numbered, I just did a chart and I numbered the drop bags. I was like, okay, I'm going to need 4 drop bags. I'm going to be seeing this one 2 to 3 times. And that's where I came up with my strategy of where I'm going to see this drop bag 3 times. That's where I'm going to put my shoes, or my best shoes. Or I'm going to have my lights in this bag. So I did like that, only having to pack 4 drop bags.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
Right. Yeah. So the stops both for crew and drop bags. Orangeville was one of our turnaround points. So the kind of the start area was going to be an area for crew and for drop bags. Then our next stop would be in Monroe, which was roughly about 10 miles away. Yeah. And then beyond that was a aid station called Hollywood. I forget the name of the little town there, but it was just kind of off the beaten path a little bit. And then we would hit. Let's see. We had
then Hollywood, then Belleville, right?
Was it? I thought there was one more. No, Orangeville. No, you're right. Orangeville, Monroe. Dollywood, and then Belleville. 4. You're right.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we did on on one portion we did the out and back to Dot's Tavern, but
Right.
that wasn't at the end. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we saw all of those kind of the day before, kind of got the locations, the idea, visualization. Thomas actually got to run a little bit on the course today and gave us a little bit of feedback. Day before, the weather we were kind of looking at, and you want to talk a little bit about what we were facing there?
Yeah, I mean, when we for packet pickup was at Dot's Tavern. We got there, and it was 95 degrees. I remember just having to get something in my drop bag, and I was just sweating, just opening and closing my drop bag. And all I could think is like, wow, I'm glad we're not racing today.
Absolutely.
Kept on looking at the weather. It's like, oh, there's going to be some thunderstorms. Something's going on tonight.
Yep.
And
we had a big storm that night. Yep. But thankfully,
winds,
thankfully race day, highs were, I think we got up into mid 80s for the high. Yeah. So thankfully the temperature dropped a bit, and then overnight was pretty pleasant.
I thought the nighttime was good.
Yeah, and the humidity wasn't too bad. Grateful. And another thing we were worried about was bugs, but I didn't seem to encounter too many. I thought it could have been a lot worse.
I know there was one portion for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, like there was a few bugs, and we're all like, oh no, they're going to come out, and then it was nothing.
Right. Yeah. So, our worst fears were belayed by, thankfully, weather was pretty decent. We didn't have any rain, which was nice, and the bugs weren't too bad. So, we staved off our worst fears. So we picked up our packet at Dot's Tavern. In the race description, what you were saying is that we would have to go down stairs into actual Dot's Tavern, which was, this. It looked like a house, and they happen to have a tavern in the basement, and it looked like we were going to have to go downstairs to pick up some kind of token to recognize that we had been there. But in reality, when we got there, the aid station was set up outside. So
I did go downstairs though. I had to
get
that. Yeah, I had to get that part of the race.
Nice. So you could. The tavern was open for those that wanted to partake. The aid stations all seemed to have a adult beverage, so it was it was pretty comical to see. As we got to the various aid stations, they always had a really huge handle of Fireball. It seemed to be the popular drink at aid stations, but I didn't partake in any of that.
No, neither did I. That's
and then we went out to dinner in Freeport. We found a nice Italian restaurant. Just had we went to the It's Just Something.
Oh yeah, the place
eatery.
Downtown.
We had done Italian the night before, and then we found like a nice little restaurant downtown, and that was nice. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was almost like a farm to table without being called a farm to table. It was, good restaurant. Yeah.
This one, after everything that we did at Western, all the big hoopla that Western entails, this one I was pretty calm. I don't know. I didn't get nervous. I didn't get stressed. Like everything is just kind of took it in stride. How were you feeling?
Yeah, the same way. That I don't know if that helped me or hurt me. But I wasn't stressed about it at all, and it's like I slept really well the night before. No issues on that. Sometimes I miss that. I wish I had a little more adrenaline coming into the race in the morning, but that's not always the best thing for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I got the wake ups, like, oh my God, we're doing 100 miles. Yeah. Like I still got that, but at the same time, I guess the simplicity and logistics of this, I think, put me a little bit more at ease. This was so accessible, I guess is the best word.
Right.
So I kind of felt, I had confidence in my crew. Here at Badger, you could get pacers at mile 38, which, that's so early in the race. That was also really nice for me to look forward to. For yourself, what was the decision? You're pretty confident without pacers, it seems.
Part of it was I didn't have time to
find pacers.
Even find pacers. I wasn't gonna. I had a few other things to worry about, and that's just one thing I wasn't going to worry about. And I knew I could enjoy it without having a pacer. It was just,
sure.
Yeah.
So 6 a.m. We got there pretty early. We beat the shuttles, which was nice because we had first dibs on the bathroom. And the morning, we had a really brief race meeting. He kind of talked about the detours, and he gave us this little bracelet, which I had no idea what it meant at first. Did you see that little white bracelet we got at Pack and Pick Up?
I don't know. I don't know why, but I carried that in my back. I was like, do I need this or not? So I wrapped I brought an ID card and some money, so I wrapped that around that and put it in my pack.
So the bracelet said "Be a Train," right?
Yeah.
And
right.
And I had no idea. I was like, "Be a Train? What is this?" I had no idea. So anyway, Be a Train. You're on the rails to trail,
right.
And it was basically there was no course markings, right? Well, very few, unless there was a turn in which we did a detour or something like that. Then there would be cones and flags and stuff. But otherwise, what he meant by be a train is just go straight. Like the train's not going to make a hard left. So it was be a train, go straight. That was the solution. It did. Yeah. If you got to a road crossing, you just look straight across, unless again there was cones or flags or signs that told you otherwise. So I got it after that. But it was So when he explained that, that made more sense. So. Yes, so the course was really easy to follow. You could kind of shut off your brain, which was kind of nice. It was nice in that regard. He walked us out to the covered bridge, which kind of made me
cool.
Kind of gave us a little bit of that Vermont vibe, which was cool. I was really surprised by how fast some of those runners started. That was, I was really taken aback. I was like, wow, they're really going after it. It's going to be interesting. So, my mindset was like, I'm in this to finish 100 miles, not to race. And there was quite a few people that I could tell were going a little too hard to start. And there were some smart ones that were like, I think I'm going a little hard. I'm going to back off. But what was your experience when we started?
Yeah, same. I started off and when you saw me in the front, I was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be in the front. And like, okay, I'll just slow it down when I need to. So there was twice I was running with somebody where I was really enjoying running with them. We were talking, but I knew I could not keep this pace up. So I was just like, hey, I basically just had to say, I got to slow it down, have a great race.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happened to me. That happened to me twice within the first 10 miles. And I still felt like I went a little too fast.
It's easy to do on that flat course, with all the excitement and hubbub of everything around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, one thing is like, there were some really nice folks during this race. I really enjoyed talking to people.
Oh,
I mean, even from the beginning. Yeah. The first 5 miles when you're all nervous and you just start talking to people, and it was like one of those types of races. Yeah, where you do that. Yeah,
and that's something that the RD Scotty had said is like you're here to make friends, like you're here to talk to people, like engage with everybody in the race, which I tried to do as well. What I found was that most people were there because of the podcast and the community that the podcast had formed. I don't know if you had the same experience.
Yeah, they seemed to, and I felt that afterwards. I met some people from the area, and they introduced me to everyone, and they all knew Scotty really well, and what a really strong great running community.
Yeah, it was interesting because that was one of the first questions that it seemed that most people asked you. Do you listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, no. I've listened to it at points when I've heard that there was a good guest. I've listened to it, but I'm not a frequenter of 10 junk miles. But yeah, it was just so funny because like they all had like nicknames, and you know, they'd say, "Oh, I'm such and such," you know, from the podcast, and I was like, "I don't know who you are. I'm sorry." Like, you know, like, I apologize. Like, you know, I have no idea. But you know, it was I didn't want to offend them either, you know, because it seemed to mean a lot that, you know, that they listened to the podcast and they were a part of the podcast, which is, you know, that's very cool. You know, more kudos to them for building community around this, you know. So, but it was funny. That's you know, like I said, most people would talk about the podcast and ask if you listen to it. So, anyhow, you know, it was fun though, you know, getting to know people. One of the young ladies that took second, her name was Emily. I was with her a lot of the time. I found myself between the second and third place female, and that was a race, and it was fun to watch, but they were focused. They were like laser. They didn't want to talk. They were there to race, you know, and me, I was there just, you know, kind of bopping along, just like, you know, whatever, you know, like this is great. I found my all day pace, you know, like I was just settled in, found my all day pace, and I was cruising, you know, like I was surprised how much I ran, you know. That was you know, I thought I'd be taking more walk breaks, but I was really surprised by how much I was able to run. But I know you had a different experience.
I felt like I started off my race comprised of I ran a marathon and then a power walk the rest. Some little intermittent running, and you know, and I did that. Just I was enjoying myself. I was enjoying the fast walking.
Yeah.
And
right. That's, well, you know, out there it was conducive. We had 36 hours, you know,
right,
to finish. And I mean, kudos to those that, you know, did, you know, that we had I think the one finisher was like 35 hours and 45 minutes. I think that was the last runner, you know, and, you know, kudos to the race for recognizing those people for being out there longer. I thought that was cool that they received a larger belt buckle for being over 30 hours. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it was, you know,
and take it like on that footing and the way that course is. I mean, when I was walking, I say I was walking, but if I was running and shuttling, I could probably be doing 12 and a half minute miles. When I was walking, I was many times doing 15-minute miles, and I mean continuously. Yeah. And the slowest, like, so it was between like 15 and 18-minute miles for, I would say, about 70 miles. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and that's cruising, you know, like 15-minute miles at a walk is
There's a couple times I might have slowed down to a 20-minute mile, but I don't think I ever, Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I did take some walk breaks, especially in the heat of the day when it got hot, you know, especially when we were exposed. Yeah. I felt that, you know, like I could feel, like I was like, whoa, you know, like I got dizzy a few times, and I'd have to pop some electrolyte tabs and drink some fluids. But, you know, other than that, like I said, I was able to keep running. My worst problems arose around mile 90 when we hit Hollywood. I had run a section with one of my pacers, and we had been moving well. We were consistently right around 11:30 to 12-minute miles by that point in the race. So from basically 80 to 90, and we ran basically the whole thing. And I was like, wow, I'm still feeling really good. I'll talk about my nutritional strategy at some other point, but you know, when I got done, I got to, you know, my next pacer from 90 to 102 was the finish. We had 102 miles in this race, and my hips started really aching, and I think it was just from that steady, constant grade, you know, and running that long. I started getting a little kind of stabbing pain in the hamstring, and my ankles were starting to get sore. I was like, oh man, you know, like I hope I'm okay. I don't want to get injured. You know, that was the big thing. So we walked for a while. And that was you know, probably the toughest part of my race was like 90 to 96. I did a walk run, you know, trying to just run when I could, but like my hips were just really achy. We got to that last aid station, you know, after the road detour, and 4 miles to go. All of a sudden, my legs were okay, you know, and I ran into the finish. But that was the toughest part of the race for me, was that, you know, those last 10 miles or 12 miles. It's, oh man, I was getting pretty achy, and it wasn't. I never cramped. I never had a cramp. My muscles didn't cramp. It's just I started getting this like deep ache in my joints, you know. And like I said, I think that was from the consistent grade that we were constantly on, and just being in the same locomotion, you know, the same shuffle for that long. Any problems that you had?
No, not so much problems. But when we hit, I can't remember the aid station, when we hit mile 48, I thought we had gone further already. And so that was just a hard aspect for me. It was like, wow, I haven't even done half the race yet.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was someone in front of me. It's like, hey, are you power walking? And it's like, yeah, I'm power walking. It's like, you want to walk together for a while? And there was like 2 or 3 of us that were just really moving out, power walking, and then it started going by a little bit faster after that. So that was nice. But it's just the whole fact is like, wow, this is really. I haven't done half the race yet. And that was like, that was a little hard for me.
Well, I mean, when we went out to Dot's Tavern and back to Belleville, you know, we're now we're 38 miles into the race. You know, we still had to go back out to Orangeville and then back to Belleville.
Right.
That was tough because, like you said, like it felt like we had been out there like a lot longer, mileage wise. You know, I mean, it was so yeah. I mean, mentally. It got a little bit taxing, you know, like it was hard. I had to keep telling myself, break it into smaller segments, you know, like break it into the next aid station. Don't think about how much you have to go. But it was hard because you realized what was exactly in front of you. Whereas in like a point-to-point course or a loop course, you're not as focused on that because it's, you know, you're focused on the next section of the course. Whereas we had already run every step of what we were going to do 2 more times, you know. So it really was a mental challenge. I had to really fight sometimes to keep myself focused and in the moment. As I said, I never really had like a huge mental low. I never really was like, you know, I never challenged the fact that I wasn't going to finish. You know, I knew I had plenty of time and you know, my body was holding up. So never got to that point. But it was a mental challenge just to be like, oh, my gosh. Like
I actually had, and I don't think this has ever happened to me in a race. I actually I started getting sleepy to the point where I was almost falling asleep while running. That's just really never happened to me before in a race, and I tricked it. I just started. I mean, there was someone I was running with somebody running with somebody at that time. I said, "Hey, I'm going to just yell at myself for a couple of minutes and wake myself up," and that worked. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah.
Right on. I have just the sleepies. You know, like as soon as it gets to about 2 a.m. I get the sleepies. That's just every race it happens. And I found in this one, if I was walking, I would get sleepier.
Yeah.
If I started running, I'd wake myself up. So, like, if I started getting sleepy, I'd pick the pace up a little bit, and that seemed to wake me back up.
Yeah, and I think this one is like, okay, I could afford to be sleepy, but you know, a lot of races where you're running by a cliff, you can't.
Right.
You just can't afford to do that.
No,
it's
totally
dangerous.
Yep,
Yeah.
Totally.
So.
Did you have any caffeine?
The caffeine just through gels.
Yeah. I did some chews.
Yeah.
I had the Power Bar chews, the Coca-Cola ones,
right.
And those were great. I would pop like maybe 4 or 5, and it would give me enough to
right.
wake me back up. And then later on, my pacer had some Honey Stinger, the cherry cola ones, and those were good. So I might add those into my bag for next time because but between the Power Bar ones and the Honey Stinger ones, it was good. it kept me up. I was doing some Coke at the aid stations, but that didn't seem to have too much of a dent of into the sleepy. But they had just little kind of pixie cups, like little bathroom mouthwash size, cups, which, it's, I should have had my reusable cup. I brought it with me. I just didn't put it on my pack, but at least I would have had, some more to drink.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But, cause those little pixie cups they don't do much for me. I didn't have any stomach troubles. I know you've got an iron gut. But,
and part of it, like at the stops, I do like having those little cups of ginger ale for whatever reason. Ginger is the thing that eases my stomach.
Yeah, I had the ginger chews. So I had those. But no, I nothing like Western states. I didn't have those problems. But like I said, I'll talk about my nutrition at another point. But it was I was surprised by the amount that, like I said, I was able to run in that race. I really didn't think I'd be able to run that much, and I was surprised because I've run flat marathons where my quads just scream, and that's obviously on a harder surface at a faster pace, but I didn't have any problems with, my quadriceps or anything like that. So did you find the same?
No, I would shuffle every once in a while it was more about, like when I was power walking really hard, sometimes I'd shuffle, and that was just all about changing the muscles up. Yeah. I found it was so different though. Like, the footing from the trail versus the road. That road was just, to me, I loved running on that road. It's like that asphalt.
Yep. Yeah. So we had two detours. One was just to get around a highway, and the other one was because a tunnel was closed. Talk about your footwear choices.
Yeah. So I started out wearing the Asics Nimbus, very cushy shoe, and then I had a Hoka Challenger and Hoka Speedgoat. Usually, Hoka Speedgoat is the shoe for me that I use both on trail. If I have to use it on road, it's no problem. So I wore the Nimbus. It seemed to work, but something, I don't know, something wasn't quite right. So I changed into the Challenger a little bit earlier just to have a different footwear, change it up, and then I changed in the Speedgoat. But for whatever reason, I know the reason. I changed back into the Nimbus because it's like I knew we were going to be back on that road, and I knew the Nimbus had a little more space in it than the Speedgoat. My feet were slightly swelling. Yeah. So that's why I was able to just change back into the Nimbus. It was one of those races where, what do I wear? Do I wear a trail shoe or do I wear a road shoe?
Yeah, a hybrid.
Right, yeah.
Road, I brought the Outroad 2 with me. Right. I never ended up using it. It squeaks, and it drives me insane. But, unfortunately, so I started with the Topo Cyclone 2, and it felt great, but for some reason it really rubbed my pinky toe on my right foot, and I could feel it. Probably around 50K was like really getting sore, and so when we got to Belleville at mile 38, I was like, let's switch shoes when we get to Hollywood, which was about 50 miles, about halfway. So let's switch into my Olympus. Yeah. My only kind of remorse was that the Olympus is so much heavier. It's like 3 ounces heavier than, maybe even more than the Cyclone. And I could feel the difference in weight, and that one squeaked. So it was, it didn't drive me crazy, but I'm sure it drove my pacers crazy. But it was just squeaking the whole time that I wore it. But it felt good underfoot. But like I said, I noticed the difference. I would love to find something that had the cushion of the Olympus, the fit of the Olympus, but the weight of like the Cyclone. It's just that lighter weight. I could really notice the difference. But the Olympus served me well for the rest of the race, and my pinky toe was sore because it was already kind of blistered. But that ended up being the worst thing, was my pinky toe. So that said, if that was the worst that happened to me, I made out pretty well. But those were my two pieces of footwear. I used the Exo Toes to start in the Cyclone, which surprised me that the pinky toe blistered. But I think it was just something on the taper of the shoe that got my toe. Mm-hmm. I had, and I talked about this in the podcast prior to racing, was that I'd never used it for that long. And that was kind of a question mark. How would they do, after 50K?
Right.
So, but, the Olympus is tried and true for me. So when I switched into those, I switched into Dry Max because my feet were just soaked. I don't know about you, but I was sweating pretty hard during the day.
Yeah, and I had some, I can't remember what the brand was, some thinner non-wool socks they seem to work well. I did have some of the lightweight, darn tough socks, so I just switch them out.
Yeah.
I probably switch socks. I probably change socks about 3 to 4 times. I always try to pack a pair of 1 or 2 pairs of socks with each shoes in the drop bags. One time I didn't even worry about it. Because I was gunning for the best time I ever could. So I changed shoes. I'm like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to go ahead and change my socks next time.
Yeah. It's the Drymax held up.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't switch out again, so I only switched the footwear and socks once. They did fine, you know. So that's I mean, but like I said, you know, in the heat of the day, I did have some problems. I got dizzy a few times, but you know, would pop some electrolytes and just drink a little more fluids, and it seemed to help. And I slowed down. I would just take a walk break, especially when we were exposed. If we were going through a sun-exposed area, I would just slow down or walk. So.
I think, like, for me, I was more than other races. I was very conscious about my fluids and taking the salt tablets on the hour, or even sometimes,
And that's what I started doing. It was just each hour have an electrolyte tab.
That I would say that was like that's the one thing I was just like very conscious of. Is like the heat of the day. I was afraid that.
I chafed this race in place I'd never chafed before. Had a lot of surprises with places that I chafed. So, I mean, I was liberally applying the Boudreaux throughout the day in areas, like I said, I've never experienced chafe before. So, you know, it could be... you know, there was a number of things. Usually, the pack I used the Ultra Aspire Revolt. I've never used it for that long. So that may have had some wear points that I'm just not used to. I pulled out an old pair of Patagonia shorts because they're 5-inch. I'm used to wearing a 7-inch. But for whatever reason, they had some chafe points, and my normal shirt had some new chafe points. It was a lot of surprises that, I just, I guess it's, things that I know now it's that, I haven't worn these things for 100 miles, and you find these things out. And thankfully I had replacements for them. I had shirts to switch into. I had shorts to switch into. I had, aside from the pack, because I stuck with the pack. But, I don't think the pack was as much of a problem as seams in the shirts and shorts. But man, it just... I was like, man, why am I getting chafed under my arms? I've never chafed there.
I started out the race with the same shorts and same shirt that I started out both Old Dominion and Western States in, because okay, I know these work.
Right.
I think I heard you talk about this in a previous podcast, and this is something I do too. Is I have a pair of compression shorts packed in one of the drop bags. I put those on. I needed those because of the heat rash / chafing that I was getting, so I went ahead and put those on at probably about mile 60 or 70.
Nice.
Yeah, and I didn't do that in the other two races, so that seemed to work.
Yeah. I noticed a lot of spandex. Which was smart. I did have them with me. I didn't have any chafing per se that was that those would have resolved.
Yeah.
It was more on the external of my leg, the outside of my leg.
Yeah.
I was, like I said, I've never had problems where I was getting these cuts from the liner and stuff. So, I mean, I switched out and I was fine, but it was just bizarre, You always experience something different, especially, based on humidity. Like California, we didn't really have any humidity. So it was, that was something different. So, but yeah, it was such a interesting race. I can say that I started off with just really appreciation for being there. I really was in a great mental state. I was, just being grateful for being in that that race and being where we were. It was beautiful. I mean, obviously, it was just God's country. Like, it was, constantly rolling fields of corn and soybeans, but it was pretty. The sky was gorgeous. We had some beautiful clouds, beautiful sky. I was really enjoying our surroundings. It wasn't until like much later in the day that like it became more of a tunnel vision, and I was focused just on the ground ahead of me and moving forward. But I can say that I really did start with a lot of gratuity in my heart. It was.
It's just like just as welcoming as Scotty was having us there. I mean, everyone at the race is very welcoming. Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had when we got out to Dot's Tavern, we had the little coaster that they gave us, the token, and I didn't know if we needed that to turn in, so when I got back to Belleville, which was the next aid station, I was like, what do we do with these coasters? And she's like, oh, it's a souvenir, keep it. And I was like, oh okay. So I handed it to my crew, I was like, and then when we came through Hollywood the last time, she had a bandana for us, which was pretty cool.
Right, yeah.
There's some nice stuff along the way, some great memories, some great people. I met some awesome people. I wish I had the chance to run with them longer. It's hard in a 100-miler, obviously, to maintain the same pace as somebody else and run with them for long periods of time, but I did enjoy the conversations that I had. I really made that a point this time, especially since Scotty emphasized that at the pre-race meeting. I really tried to immerse myself in the race and thank the volunteers and get to know the runners along the way. As I said, I was kind of with those two females that went 2-3. They didn't want to have those conversations. They were there for a different reason, and I understand that, and I respect that. And I tried to, not be, constantly trying to talk to them and stuff, but it's who I found myself around, and it was hard not to because I'm a talker. But no, I really enjoyed the experience. I can say that I probably would not go back. As much as I enjoyed the experience, I think that was a one and done for me. I know people love races like Yeti 100 and such, but that format is just not my cup of tea. I'd much rather a point-to-point or a loop course. What did you think?
I won't go back to that. I won't go back up there. It's just a little bit far for me.
Sure.
I would like to do Yeti, so I'm not so discouraged from those types of courses. Sure. Sometimes I get back in my head, I'd like to go back to Tunnel Hill and try to go under 24 hours. Cool. So I still get in my head I'm okay with those races. This race is just maybe a little bit too far logistically, for me to take another trip to. But you never know, I have nothing
against Yeti. I have nothing against Tuttle Hill. I just know it's not my format. It's not my style of racing. Flat is not me. I am looking forward to Leadville and Wasatch. That's bring me to the mountains. That's where I love. Finishing, you had a great crowd when you finished. There was people at the finish line. When I finished, it was like it's your typical ultra. You come in and actually it was Scotty's wife that was there.
Oh, okay.
And maybe like two other volunteers, and my crew, of course, but. It was, there was nobody there. I finished around 5 a.m. So I finished like 23 hours and 1 minute. And like I said, it was very quiet. But it was fine. I was so glad to finish. But what did you experience when you finished?
Originally when I started, I was trying to go under 24, and that was just because I didn't want to be out there the second day in the sun.
Sure.
But there I was in the sun again. So when I finished, it was a decent crowd out there, and people were sticking around.
And there was multiple races. We should say that as well.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. So, and that was great for me. Just to
have some other runners out there.
Other runners out there.
Right.
Every single runner, I don't care from the lead, said good job for the 100-milers coming by. I thought that was really cool. I mean, even the guy leading the marathon, he was like, hey.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Saturday they had 100K. Didn't seem to have a lot of runners.
No. Right, yeah. I think the 100K, 100K started an hour.
Yeah, it was because they started over in Belleville.
Okay, right. Okay,
yeah, so they started in Belleville, went out and back.
So they had 100K. Did they have a 50 miler or not sure?
So the 50 miler, I think, started on Sunday.
Okay, and they had a 50K, a marathon, and a half marathon.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of races on Sunday, which when I finished, none of them had started yet.
Okay.
So
so for me, there was a lot more people out. And
yeah. So
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's great. Yeah. I mean, like we passed some 100K runners on our way into the finish.
Yeah.
And as you said, everybody, great job, you're doing awesome, and you check on them because, these are the back of the packers for the 100K, and they're having a tough go. That's the end of their race, and but yeah, that was kind of nice too. Having some other folks out there. The nighttime was kind of interesting because you could see headlamps. Like you could see where people were around you, and if somebody was coming up on you. But it was cool in that regard because you never felt alone. You never felt alone. It was always knew there were some folks around. So I did enjoy that. But it just like you said, driving all the way up there and going all the way up there. It's I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we had the opportunity. I'm grateful for my finish. I'm grateful we can continue on with the Grand Slam.
And it was interesting because, I mean, you look at the elevation gain. It felt like it was less than yeah. But it was.
I think they advertised like 8,000 feet.
Something
right?
like that. Yeah,
I never looked. I didn't look at Strava or anything to see. Did you look to see how much you got?
I thought they said 6,000, but it was like on the course.
I'll try to bring it up real quick.
4,000 to 6,000. But one of the things, though, I mean, after doing Western, I didn't want to get in my head that because this is a low elevation, it's going to be an easier race.
Right.
I felt like if I did that, I could really get in trouble because there's going to be something else that's going to make this a hard race, and that was the heat and it just being flat made it a hard race. Yeah.
So Strava has it at 2,021 feet.
That seemed more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they advertised. Well, when we looked at the course GPX, it was in meters. It said like 1,400 meters, which would be roughly like 4,200 feet, which this would be half of that. So, 2,021 feet according to Strava. Take that for what it's worth. Says I burned 10,511 calories. But anyhow, so it was a nice buckle. I like the buckle.
And this is the only race I've been to where they've actually give you the belt too.
Yeah, that was cool.
So,
right.
Yeah, that was really cool. I was like, wow.
It was a little nerve wracking though to get that packet pickup.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh man, like
medium or large.
And the other part of it too is like, I hope I earned this buckle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like now I gotta finish so I can use this belt. So, but I mean, like, and we signed up late, obviously, so we weren't guaranteed swag, but they did a great job with the swag. I mean, we got a bucket cap, we got socks, a shirt, the belt, a patch, that bracelet. I mean, the little, kind of pack that they give you. So it was, they did a really nice job. The volunteers were wonderful. They were very into the race, very into you and supporting you. They did a great job, and Scotty had advertised that they're going to have real food at the aid stations, not any gels or anything like that. I would say the only thing that I noticed was that they didn't have a lot of like whole, kind of hot food and, just something that would be a little bit more fulfilling other than like a PB&J, some chips, maybe some cookies. I was under the impression that we would have some hot food, especially later in the race, but I didn't come across much.
And I was getting by with the grilled cheeses and the ramen.
Gotcha.
But
which I can't do either. So,
but I mean, folks that know me, they see me race. They know there's nothing I love better than a cheeseburger on a 100-mile run.
Yeah,
I mean, I eat a cheeseburger and I'm good to go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, like I told you, we brought my Jet Boil and we brought some Bubba burgers and some bacon and some ketchup. So I had my burgers and. So I was good. I learned my lesson from Western States and brought this time. So, Leadville, I hear, has a lot more options. I got to look into Leadville. That's obviously up next for me. But Thomas has completed race number 3. He is 3 down, 1 to go. So he's prepping for Wasatch already. So how are you feeling?
Everything, like I walked today on the treadmill, everything's good, just a little bit fatigued. Well, a lot fatigued.
Sure.
Being very careful not to start running until I don't want to get injured.
Right.
That's the number one thing.
Yep.
Cannot get injured. Not talked about the train, but it's going to be a completely different race, so I got to get refocused on that.
Yep.
One thing exciting is I did buy my tickets to Salt Lake City.
Nice. I got to do that.
I actually bought them the day after finishing the race.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'll probably do it today.
Yeah. I could not move on until.
Yeah. Well, I still have Leadville, so it's it's like I have the logistics for Leadville and. We've got Leadville, and then we're heading to Italy. So, it's like, oh my gosh. But, so, planning for Wasatch, we'll definitely talk about Wasatch beforehand. But your training, we do have some hiking here to kind of get your legs going again. And then next week we start adding in some vertical gain. That's what we're incorporating because obviously we're through.
And it really is what I love. I love using poles and getting back into the
right,
going up hills.
Yep.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I moved to Western North Carolina.
So we'll build his walk volume back up. So his hiking will be the biggest piece of it, and then incorporate some running, and then kind of the probably I think it's 3 weeks away. We kind of flip it, and his runs get a little bit longer than his walks. Okay. Yeah. But we still have elevation gain goals. But as he said, the trick is not to get him injured. So it's if running's not in the cards, we stick to the hiking. It's really just our fitness is there. You've got just under 6 weeks to Wasatch. So he's got some time to recover. We just got to stay smart, stay vigilant. How's your Achilles holding up?
Achilles is fine. I felt like it was going to flare up during the race, and
it's a lot of
flat. And that's part of why I ended up walking quite a bit, because I knew if I just pounded, it just like what happens is I feel like I start running inefficiently instead of using my the right muscles. I start using the wrong muscles and start using a little too much around my calves and Achilles. So, but I could get by with walking. So I'm good. No flare up on the Achilles right now, and I just need to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Because once you get a flare, it could be like 2 to 3 days to a week. If not, and if it gets really bad, you're just you got to figure out some type of training until it gets better.
The fitness is all there. It's just kind of recovering and maintaining. Right. It's just we can only do too much. And that's what will get you hurt. So we just got to be vigilant, be cautious.
Right.
And get you through Wasatch. Let's get you your trophy. And it was wonderful too, because we finished, and Stan, who manages the. Is it race100s.com?
I think it's www.run100s.com.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Run100s.com.
I got to say something about his website. He lists all the hundreds, and I think when I first started looking at it, there was like 60 some. Now there's well over 200 on there, so that's always neat to see.
He has a great website. So if you're looking for information on 100 milers, his website, which I'll put in the show notes again, great resource. But he reached out to us like almost instantaneously.
Oh yeah, that was so cool.
With the congratulations. So
he's tracking it.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, he's more into just the recording of this. He's not actually, the director of the Grand Slam. But it's super cool that he, recognized that. And there was 3 of us that were up there. Zhang from, where is Zhang from? Is he from?
Zhang is from California, and Yeah, and he ran by me in the first couple miles of the race and introduced himself, so
Nice.
that was really cool.
Yeah. I think he got fifth. Is that
Did
right?
he? Okay,
Yeah, I think he got fifth
that's
overall.
great.
Yeah, he was moving really well. So he's got 3 down, right?
Okay.
'Cause
My understanding he does,
yeah, I think he did Old Dominion, right?
He was at Old Dominion.
Yeah. So he's got 3 down because he did Western and Badger. So he's got 3 down, so he's just got Wasatch to go. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, pretty cool. You know, it's neat to meet some fellow Grand Slammers. I wish we had the opportunity to meet some others, perhaps. You know, obviously at Wasatch, I think they get us all together for a group photo, which is cool. We'll figure out the logistics of Wasatch. We'll talk about that more as we look over the course and get ideas for what we're going to do and race plan. But you know, we're getting close. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, congratulations once again.
Thanks, Aaron. Congratulations
awesome.
to you. Yeah,
Thank you, man. Really enjoyed spending time with you too. We had a great time up there. It was nice to just spend some time, hang out, especially after the race. We got to just chill and go have a meal, relax, and talk about things.
There's something to be said about being in a smaller town like that. I mean,
it was intimate.
Some things are just easier.
It was nice. No waits. We just got right into restaurants, and it was pretty nice. So, my daughter was like, "Can we just stay a little bit longer?" But my friend Nathan had to get back. So, but I really enjoyed the time up there, Thomas. So thank you and congratulations. Well, thank you to Thomas for his time. We got to record live and in person from my house, which was totally cool. Kind of talk more. We talked a lot actually off the microphone about our experience and stuff. It was great catching up with Thomas. So thank you, Thomas, for coming on board and talking once again about the Badger 100. Congratulations for your finish. My goodness, I can't believe he has 3 down. So cool. For myself, I am less than 2 weeks away. So if you're listening to this, the episode will release on August 3rd. Leadville is August 19th. So Leadville is coming up quick. I've got my crew all set. I'm going to work on their pacing strategies and plans and all that good stuff. So lots of work to do. It's a quick pivot from Badger to Leadville, obviously, and then an even quicker pivot from Leadville to Wasatch. So I'm going to have to kind of get my Wasatch plan together pretty quickly because in between Leadville and Wasatch, my wife and I traveled to Italy for my brother's wedding. So some crazy times up ahead, and cross-country starts for us next week with the middle school kids. So, a lot going on, which is awesome. So, as I promised, I said I would discuss my nutritional strategy. After Western States, I talked with Peter Defty at Vespa, and I was brought to my attention by my good friend Bart Smith. Bart has been a optimal fat utilization, advocate for quite some time. I didn't know much about it. I can't explain Vespa or how it works. I use their ultra concentrate product, which is what Peter turned me on to. He is the founder of Vespa, and he told me, do about 45 minutes before. You can drink it right out of the packet and then chase it down with some water, or you can put it in some water and drink it. Either way, do about 45 minutes before the race, and then about every 2 hours, do another packet of the concentrate. As the race goes on, you can decrease that interval down to hour 45, hour and a half, whatever your body's telling you. But, from what he described and what I understand, what it's supposed to do is optimize your fat usage while still keeping open your availability of carbohydrates. So you can still consume carbohydrates, but also have better fat utilization. So with that said, my pacer Nathan was suggested we use the goo gel flasks. So we added some goo Roctane into one of my bottles, the drink, as well as some goo Roctane gels in my gel flask. So I could have some carbohydrate options while I was running. About every 40 minutes, I would consume a little bit of gel. I would just kind of squeeze some out of the gel pouch. That way it was reusable. I didn't have packets to worry about and all that good stuff. My crew would refill it. It was working well. every hour, as kind of, Thomas and I were talking about, I would take an S cap, so electrolyte tab. Drinking mostly water. I tried to get the bottle of Roctane down. I had a 500 milliliter flask of Roctane and a 500 milliliter flask of water. So I was drinking mostly water, but every time I saw my crew, I would switch out a Roctane bottle. So I made sure that, and I'd see them roughly every 10 miles. So I made sure that in that time, I drank 2 bottles of water and 1 flask of Roctane, so about 1,500 milliliters every 10 miles. And that's not to say that if I hit an aid station in between, I didn't drink or consume fluids while I was there. I would also, get to, especially in the heat of the day, when I got to an aid station, I would have them fill up my water flask. I would chug that and then have them refill it, potentially drinking 2 at the aid station and then refilling and having a third to go. But for the most part, like I said, I was doing mostly water with the S-Cap electrolyte tabs about every hour. I only did 1. I would crack it open with my teeth, kind of get the contents of the capsule, and then kind of just store the capsule to throw away later. If you're ingesting the capsules, it takes a while for that to dissolve in your gut, so you're delaying the benefits of the S-Tab or the S-Cap. So, like I said, if you have one of those with a gel cap, crack it open. Either pull it apart and kind of consume the contents, or crack it open with your teeth, like I did, and get the contents out, and then get rid of the capsule. So I was doing that, and then as the race went on, I started to go more towards chews. I started using more chews, especially when I got tired. That's something we talked about with the Power Bar chews, the caffeinated cola Power Bar chews. I was using those that kind of kept me awake and such. And one of my favorite gummies is Coca-Cola bottles. You can see a theme there. So my daughter was filling up some Ziploc bags with Coca-Cola bottles, and I would just kind of pop a few every now and again, eat some of those rather than consuming the gels, and then when I feel like I needed a bigger meal, I had them cook up a burger, bacon, and then I threw some ketchup on top. So I stopped in when we came back from Dot's Tavern, so around mile 38, I had a burger and bacon there. That was, kind of early afternoon, just after lunchtime. So had one there. And then when I got back to Orangeville, so around mile 69, 70, I tried to consume one there, but I think I tried to eat too fast, and I was just having problems getting it down. Like I said, I think I was just trying to eat too fast. But I had another one there. Also had some other backup foods that I could have had. I brought some instant mashed potatoes that I could have used, and some other camp food. Didn't actually get into those. It was amazing, like how much I didn't need. Never felt like I was bonking. Never felt like I needed to eat. I was never very hungry, and my energy just stayed constant throughout. Nathan was surprised by how much I didn't eat. He was almost alarmed and worried that I wasn't eating enough. But like I said, I didn't feel I needed it. I came off the Roctane after the heat of the day and just stuck to water. My bottle of water. You drank off of that. I didn't really need the S caps once the temperatures kind of cooled down, so I was just drinking water and kind of moving along, eat my Coke bottles and chews every now and again. But I was very surprised by how little gels and carbohydrates I actually needed. In Leadville, we're going to go more with the chews. I will carry that little gel flask as a standby, but I think the chews worked extremely well. It was nice to just be able to pop a few, every now and again, knowing how much I was getting. The problem with the gel flask was that, I don't know how much calories I was getting with the squeeze. I know a little bit better how much each chew is, so I can control that variable a little bit better. So, the plan for Leadville, kind of similar to what I was doing at Badger, is just carry fluids and electrolyte tabs. The fluids are just going to be water. I'm going to go with straight water and electrolyte tabs. That part of it's taken care of. I'm going to stick with the Vespa about every 2 hours. That seemed to go quite well. So do a Vespa every 2 hours, and then just carry the chews. And about maybe every 30 to 40 minutes, pop a few chews, just depending on what I'm needing. Aid stations sound like they're going to be pretty well stocked. So if I want to pick up some real food, I totally can. Hopefully I'll have some options there. If not, again, we'll have my backup options. I'm going to bring the jet boil again, so we can have some hot food options just in case we need it. Lesson learned from Western states. So that was a nice option to have at Badger. The availability to cook and have some food that I could look forward to. Also did some Snickers bars along the way. I love some Snickers bars. So my daughter had those nice and chilled for me. So I'd grab a few Snickers bars, just the fun snack size. They're about maybe 2 inches long. I'd grab like 2 of those and head out of the aid station and eat those. So I ate quite a few of those. So another fueling source. But other than that, like I said, it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it seems to really work. I'm not to say that I'm not going to bring options with me to Colorado just in case things don't work. But like I said, I'm very pleased with the result. Very, very happy that I didn't have to consume as much as I usually do. That was pretty crazy. So that was my nutritional. If you got questions, don't hesitate to ask. Again, I don't understand the science behind it. I can't explain that. That would be something to reach out to Peter at Vespa about. But he's happy to answer questions. He was amazing. When I finished, I wrote him an email and just thanking him, for all the time he spent with me. We had multiple phone conversations, multiple email exchanges. And he just kind of told me, here's what you should do. And, I emailed him, say, hey, everything seemed to work great. I'm really appreciative, very happy with the result. And he called me. He just called my cell and just wanted to kind of check in and talk about things. And he said, hey, we're going to talk again before Leadville. So very cool. Very happy that I met Peter and I've had these exchanges with him. So like I said, if you're looking for something different, if you're having some stomach GI distress, it's worth a try. The only other thing that I did when it got hot and I needed more electrolytes is I put LMNT in my water bottle just to have some extra electrolytes. Like I said, during my conversation with Thomas, is I got pretty hot a few times and dizzy, and slowing down definitely helped, but having extra electrolytes also helped. So yeah, putting LMNT in my bottles just for straight electrolytes, because it has a very high sodium content, that seemed to help extremely well as well. So if you're racing in the heat, need some electrolytes in your fluids, LMNT seems to work pretty well. But try it beforehand. It can obviously anything can cause stomach distress, especially if you haven't tried it. So be careful. Experiment beforehand. Experiment in your runs. See what works for you. But that's everything I can think of. But again, if you have questions, reach out. I'll answer whatever questions I have, and if I can't answer those questions, I'll direct you my best to where you may find those answers. So that's my summation of Badger 100. Again, Leadville approaches quickly. I can't wait. I'm so excited to go. I never thought I'd be this excited by the prospect of Leadville, but returning to the mountains and racing in the mountains in Colorado, it really has me excited. That, and really looking forward to meeting the others that fundraise for the Challenge Athlete Foundation. They've done a great job of kind of keeping us abreast of what's going on and where our monies are going, the athletes that it's impacting and what they're up to. So very excited by that. I can't wait to meet those folks. So that's all things to look forward to. And so we'll be talking more about Leadville as it approaches, as I kind of wrap my brain around the logistics of Leadville. I've got the participant guide. It sits right at my nightstand, so I'll be studying that a little bit each night and kind of formulating a plan. As I said, I've got my Pacers and crew all set. Excited to see my friend Jeremy Duncan. I haven't seen him in quite a few years, and he's such a great person. Drew Antonese, who has been on the podcast, he's out in Colorado right now, and we'll be crewing and pacing as well. And then, of course, Nathan, one of my great friends, he's coming back out. So appreciate all those guys and look forward to that experience. But as I said, we'll be talking more as the time approaches. So with that, I think that's everything that's going on around here. coaching, man, shut-in local race here, just opened registration yesterday. I had a number of people kind of reach out to me about training. It was incredible, the explosion of people that reached out to me about training. So not sure where I'm at with athletes at the moment, as I'm just kind of catching up from getting back from Wisconsin. But if you have questions or want to talk about coaching, please reach out. My apologies if, you hear this and, you reach out and I say, I apologize. I can't accept any athletes at the time, but I don't know at the moment. I really have to see where I'm at and kind of figure that out. So don't hesitate to reach out, though. If I can, I will certainly help you. I really, love being there for people, but if I can't, then I may have some suggestions as to who you can reach out to. So, thank you to those that reached out. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear of, just reach out to me. All the contacts are in the show notes. Love to answer questions you may have. And again, if I don't know, I may find somebody that I can have on the podcast and answer that question. So, I had a good suggestion from one of my athletes. I'll be getting into that on another podcast episode. So we'll talk more soon. Until then, though, I hope you have a great summer. I hope you're enjoying your summer. I hope you're enjoying your training. Keep moving forward, my friends, and keep running. I'll talk to you next time.